Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. Fade to Black. It is Monday, May 22nd, 2023. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. And tonight, our guest is T. Krulos. And we've got a lot of things we're going to be discussing tonight. But let's just say the Great Lakes area and the paranormal and the supernatural, some cryptids and stuff like that. We're going to be doing all of that tonight. I just came off of an amazing weekend. I had house guests here all weekend, and River Moon Coffee, Juanita and Jeff flew in from Minneapolis, and then I gathered a bunch of my friends, and we cooked out and laughed and drank and did a bunch of touristy things all weekend long. And normally when I do something like that, I take Monday off. Not today. Oh no. No, we are rocking and rolling. It's going to be a great show tonight. Really looking forward to this. T is a freelance writer. He's an author from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he's a regular contributor to publications like Riverwest Currents, M Magazine, Fortean Times, and the Shepherd Express. He has also published in a wide variety of other publications, including the New York Press, The Guardian, the Boston Phoenix, Maximumrocknroll, the Onion's AV Club, and Pop Mythology. Some of his favorite subjects to explore and write about include subcultures, the unique stuff, people, places, as well as art and music. Well, we'll find out about that tonight, won't we? All of his websites are below, and links to his various stuff, including tkrulos.com. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, T. Krulos. And he's right there in front of me. T, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. And here you go, T. So you get the first time guest disclaimer. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. T, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, and where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. Do you accept the challenge?
I do. Absolutely.
Oh, big relief. We got some noise coming from your background there. Is it a fan? Is it? It's coming in loud and strong.
I don't think anything's on.
Oh, hold on. Watch this. I'm going to mute you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's coming in from your end. Okay, it's quite. Wow. Oof. I wonder what that is. Okay, stay there. Let me see if I can fix this. No. Okay, that kind of helped. Okay, let's. Man. Okay. We're going to have to ignore it. If you go down to your settings, T, we're live right now. The three hamburgers, the three dots next to your picture, edit mic settings. Make sure echo cancellation is turned on. And we'll take it from there because it's turned on my end.
Okay. The settings I'm going to?
Yeah, the three dots right above your picture. Down below. Okay. See where it says edit mic settings? See, when I turn off echo cancellation and then turn it back on, see, that fixed it for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Are your speakers on in the back? Okay. Yeah, we've got something weird. It wasn't going on before.
Okay, the echo cancellation should be off, you're saying?
No, on.
On? It is on?
Okay. All right. Well, we got to ride through this. It is definitely. Yeah, you turned it off there for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have at this point. We don't have much of a choice. Okay. I grew up in the Great Lakes and Waukegan, North Chicago, that area, and I can see Milwaukee from the beach. Right, you could just look up and look around the corner, and we would always talk about that as kids. But what I didn't hear about a whole lot as kids, like I do now, is the paranormal and the supernatural and the other stuff that is going on in that area. What got your interest into this?
Wisconsin's a weird place. It's one of the weirdest places that I've encountered, and I've traveled around the world. So, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, my family knew that I had interest in strange stuff. So they would cut out newspaper articles they saw that they thought might interest me. And one day they gave me this newspaper article about how people had been reporting seeing a werewolf in the Elkhorn area. Elkhorn's a small town. It's maybe an hour west of Milwaukee. And that article really captured my imagination because it said that people in Elkhorn were seeing this werewolf running around a farm lane called Bray Road. And one person had seen this thing sitting at the side of the road eating some roadkill. So every time we'd go for a drive, I would look out the window at the cornfields,
Right.
really convinced that I was going to see a werewolf that was going to jump out. And that was a Beast of Bray Road, of course.
Yes.
Kind of a famous cryptid story. But there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of UFO sightings in Wisconsin, all over the state. In fact, we have 3 small towns here that all claim that they're the UFO capital of Wisconsin. And they all have their own little, Alien Day, UFO Day type festival. Lots of ghost stories, especially here in Milwaukee. We have a lot of old buildings that are still standing in downtown. So places like the famous Pfister Hotel, which is very famous amongst Major League Baseball players because many of them have said that they've had encounters there. But that's just one. There's so many ghost stories around the city and all over the state.
Now, what do you think? What do you think is causing it? Because you can only blame so much on beer and cheese,
right? Yeah,
right. And I'm making light of it, right? There's got to be something else going on. What do you think it is?
I think it's a couple things. I mean, for one thing, our state just has a very rich storytelling history in general, going back to the indigenous people who lived here. And then we have a very strong tavern culture. So like you say, people do like to drink and tell stories. But I think it's just one of those special spots that attracts weirdness. It's kind of Midwestern creepy weirdness.
No, it's true. And it's a very, very heavily influenced indigenous culture through that area. Well, all across North America for sure.
Yeah.
But Chicago, Wisconsin, the names of all the towns and cities are all indigenous. Mm-hmm. And so there is that spirit realm vibe that continues where we may equate some of that as being modern, but it just may have been there for centuries, right?
Yeah, I love, there's such a lot of rich stories from indigenous culture that talk about thunderbirds and water serpents and the Wendigo, of course. And so, it has that long history of these stories here.
Yeah. Can we talk about the thunderbirds for a second?
Yeah.
I was born in Chicago and then spent a bunch of years in Indianapolis. Same place, right? It's just a couple of cornfields apart, right? Same as Milwaukee, right? Everything is, all these towns and the people are pretty similar. But when I was in Indianapolis in the early 70s, mid 70s, there were these reports of these giant thunderbirds. I mean, in the media, in the paper, and some were caught on film. This was like a pretty big media sensation in the 70s, and I know that you remember this. What do you make of those stories? And I don't strike it up to imagination or some kind of mass hysteria. I think they were actually seen.
Yeah, I think so too. They're very compelling stories. The stories from Illinois and even here in Wisconsin, my friend Allison Jornlin, she's a great ghost researcher and really kind of the expert on ghost lore here in Milwaukee. But she has a relative that saw a thunderbird in Brookfield, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. He was at the hospital. His wife was giving birth to their child, and he was kind of pacing around the waiting room. And he says a bird the size of a small airplane flew over the hospital, and he watched it like kind of fly over. And Allison says that he's a very credible witness, not someone that needs medication or something like that. And there's other stories like that from around the Midwest that I've heard too. Very compelling reports of thunderbird sightings.
Do you ever go ghost hunting?
Yeah. I wrote a book that came out in 2015. It was titled Monster Hunters. And I was a fan of paranormal stuff, but not really involved. And my goal with that book was I wanted to meet some of these people and find out what they do and how they do it and why and all of that. So I was fortunate in that there's a team here in Milwaukee. They're called the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee. And they let me tag along with them for about a year and a half. And I went on probably 12 or 15 different ghost expeditions. It's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, don't stop there. 12 is a good number. You got your feet wet.
Yes, yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I haven't done a lot in recent years because I've been busy with other projects, but it's certainly something that I enjoy doing, and I found it to be really relaxing, actually, a lot of times. So,
anything stand out?
Oh, well, one place we investigated, we happened to both be on the road, me and some of their team members, and we met up in Kentucky to investigate Bobby Mackey's Music World. And that's kind of a well-known haunted location, and it was creepy, that's for sure. It was a creepy night.
Did you go to the hole? Did you check it out?
Yes. The well to the portal to hell.
Yes.
Right.
And so I don't know if that kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love ghost hunting, but there's when you have something called the portal to hell,
right?
With the reputation behind it, I'm going to leave that to the professionals. But anything happen?
Yeah. I would say team members, I didn't experience this myself, but I believe these people because I hung out with them for quite a while. And one of them says that they felt like they were possessed by a very angry spirit. And they just had this like kind of blind rage where they said they felt like choking their teammates, And it was like this evil sense of being that came over them. And another team member that same night, she actually says that she lost her vision. She was sitting there and she went blind and she couldn't feel her hands at all. And she was kind of crying about this. And someone was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And she was like, "I can't see anything." And they're like, "Well, it's dark." And she was like, "No, I mean, I can't see anything." And she was very frightened.
Right. It's dark.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I've had my own experiences with ghost hunting, and when after I've done maybe 3, 4 different things, and after each one, I walked away going, well, I can't speak for everything. I can't, but this stuff is real.
Yeah.
And I had different levels and different types of things happen, but all of it pretty much unexplainable. I mean, I couldn't explain it, and disembodied voices and weird footsteps and knocks and stuff in rooms that because we had camera and sound and lights and things, that we had everything completely quiet, for production, and then the stuff is happening. It was pretty remarkable. I still don't have explanations. I just think we need more research.
Yeah. I've never experienced anything directly myself. However, I've talked to a lot of people, and I believe them because they're very genuine about what they've experienced, and so that is some evidence to me.
Have you? Okay, so we're going to get into the Chicago Mothman first, but before we get there, ultimately, have you had that firsthand experience, whether it's seeing something or hearing something, that causes you to back up and go, okay, well, what's happening here?
Well, I did see a UFO one night, and that was pretty compelling. I've never witnessed anything like that before.
What would you see?
Well, it's a funny story because when I was working on that same book, one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to get out there in the field with a Bigfoot researcher. So I found a really cool guy. His name's Jim Sherman. He's in Michigan, and he was like, "Sure, yeah, I'm gonna do this investigation later this summer. Why don't you come with me?" So we went out. We're looking for Bigfoot, and it was very interesting. And the last night we were there, I was just about to go to sleep, and I heard this blood-curdling howl outside of my tent, which scared me pretty badly. Now, it was probably an aggressive coyote and not a Bigfoot, but I'm awake, and I go over to Jim's Jeep, and we're both sitting there in the Jeep kind of looking to see what we can see. And I was like, man, I must be really scared because that star up in the sky is shaking. I must be shaking. And I was like, wait a minute, that's the only thing moving though. So I was like, Jim, do you see this? And we got out and we saw it was like this giant ball of light that was up in the sky, and it would zip really fast over to a different part of the sky and kind of hover and bob there and then zip back over here and move up and down. And sometimes light was emanating out of the bottom of it. And we looked at it through binoculars. We did take video of it, and I got to learn the frustration of this because the video doesn't look good because it's hard to focus on it. It's moving around and it's blurry. But I've never seen anything move like that, and there's no explanation that satisfies me. It wasn't a drone. It was moving way too erratically. It wasn't a helicopter or something. So I don't know what it was, but it was very unusual.
Well, and see, but now you're the crazy person that you write about.
Yes, yeah. I got to experience that firsthand because I would tell people about it, and they'd be like, really? And you were hanging out in the sun all day with a guy who looks for Bigfoot, and then you saw this thing.
Drinking and you guys are smoking weed. Yeah, and I get all of that. But the special part about this is not only now it's like welcome to the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have that part, but you almost don't want to tell the whole story. You almost don't want to tell it because you just become the crazy person. So you want to tell the rational part of it, right? The part that you feel that people are going to buy, to purchase what you're selling. But once that paradigm shift happens, now do you find yourself listening to people with their experiences a little bit differently?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It definitely changed my perception of things. and it's made me more interested in the subject matter for sure.
The openness that we have right now with Washington D.C. on the subject in the media and people coming forward and it seems like it's in the news every single day now. It's in the budget, right? It's in the 2022, 2023 budgets. That's pretty crazy. But does it make it easier for you to not only write about these subjects, but to talk about them openly in public now and without any fear?
Oh, sure. I think people make the connection that it's that people take this subject seriously, including some people in the government. And so it's become a little bit more of a mainstream topic, I guess is how I would phrase it.
Yeah.
You can refer to the mainstream media reporting on it. This is some of the top news agencies, not like some lone weird person who's, writing their UFO manifesto or something.
Yeah. There's okay. So in the past, and we all love the Fortean Times, right? Okay.
Yeah.
If you can go and get your yayas out there, right? And we all did, and we all still do, for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit different when the New York Times puts this on the front page.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that interesting. Okay, so now, I have never. And I thought that I'd been down the block. I've never heard of the Chicago Mothman. When did you first hear about the Chicago Mothman?
I think there was a couple reports of this in 2011. And I do remember hearing about that, I think. But the big wave really came in 2016. All of a sudden, the internet was blowing up with all of these Mothman sightings. At first, they were mostly in the city of Chicago, and then the reports started to come in from other locations around the Midwest. And I, of course, was immediately very curious about it because Chicago's not very far from Milwaukee, right? It's about an hour and a half. You can cruise down there. So I was like, wow, this is happening in my own backyard. I also happened to know some of the investigators who were looking into the cases. So I was kind of seeing what they had to say about this. And it's a very confusing case because, and I've tried to look at it as objectively as I can, but I think there's a couple things going on. I think one, there are people who are actually seeing something, because they've come forward, they've been interviewed. I also think that there is a joker out there who is bored, maybe, and fabricating Mothman reports. So it's hard to tell where the line one story stops and the next begins. So
okay, I jumped into this, and one of the things that caught my eye was the NPR, right, National Public Radio, and covering this, and this is something that NPR doesn't normally do. I'm talking about a network that stays inside of the box. I love the NPR, but I don't go to them for my cryptids.
Right.
That's the zone I don't go into with them. But they covered it, and they covered it extensively.
Yeah.
And they took it pretty serious, didn't they?
Yeah.
And okay, so how did the local media started to cover it out there?
Well, I mean, it's been covered by like paranormal sites have reported on it and have gotten most of the reports themselves. So MUFON got some of the reports. There's a site called Phantoms and Monsters that was getting reports. And the Singular Fortean Society is a group here in Wisconsin, actually. So they were just sharing the reports. It did pick up like a pretty good media interest, especially in 2016, 2017. It was reported by like you said, NPR, Chicago Tribune, Vice did an article about this. So there's a lot of coverage on it, and most of them were just sharing. They weren't like really delving into the story of where these might have come from.
And okay, so do you think that some of it was hoaxed?
I do. And one of the reasons is if you take all the reports and start to read through them, you start to find that a lot of them have similar language. And I don't mean they're describing the same thing, but the way that it's written has a certain formula. And I notice that because I'm a writer. So I'm like, this report is awfully similar sounding to this one. They're using a lot of similar word usage, and the sort of rhythm of the writing is the same. So I do think that there was a person or persons who were anonymously hoaxing some of these reports. Like I say, there are some where the person actually did, come forward and say, I saw this and, I'm reporting it. So I think that there might be something to it, but maybe it inspired someone who likes hoaxing to start fabricating their own. So it's a little bit, it's kind of frustrating. It's a frustrating case.
I have two. This is an interesting take. So I've got two reports here. And let's go through this just for a second, because we have witness Erin Drain, right? And she says, I was spending the afternoon on the rooftop. I saw something in the sky. Video evidence, fairly high up and fairly far away. It wasn't being buffeted about by the wind. It was moving slowly, but not randomly. Then we have witness Jeff. Okay. Jeff says, at first I thought it was a bird, but none I'd seen before because it was just so huge and the way it was flopping its wings. The longer I watched it, it was like, what the hell is that thing? It was freaky. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there.
It's, when the internet first started, there was this famous cartoon, and it's a dog who's on the computer and he's talking to another dog and he says, nobody knows that you're a dog on the internet. See, the problem is when you get an anonymous report on the internet, where did that come from? Who wrote it? It could be a witness that saw a Mothman, or it could be some 12-year-old kid that wants to mess around with UFO investigators just to be a jerk, And now, it's hard to tell.
Right. Now let's get to the reporting and reports from eyewitnesses that you feel was credible.
The one that sticks out in my mind was the Singular Fortean Society went and visited a guy who said he had an encounter in Mukwonago, which is a small town here in Wisconsin. And they said that he still looked like he was shaken up by this. He described how he was talking to his friend on the phone. He drove up to his parents' house and he didn't want to disturb them because it was late. So he was sitting in his car, finishing his phone call. And he saw this like humanoid form that stepped from behind a street lamp. And he noticed that it was grayish black, had red eyes and wings. But he showed the location where he said that this encounter happened and walked through the whole thing and seemed very genuine about that. So someone like that, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt,
And how obviously we have Point Pleasant and John Keel. Mm-hmm. And now we've got to start to see if we can connect the dots to see if we're talking about the same phenomena. What did you walk away with?
It's a very similar description as far as the entity itself. But I don't know whether similarities there are. The thing was, when this happened in 2016, of course, a lot of people associate the Point Pleasant Mothman with being this harbinger of doom that ended with the Silver Bridge collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
So people were like, "Uh-oh, we know what's going to happen in Chicago." Well, a lot of bad stuff happens in Chicago all the time, so it's maybe hard to tell. But yeah, I don't know what it could be. I mean, my theory has always been that these are interdimensional beings of some sort that can kind of pop in and out between dimensions, is the one that makes sense to me.
What about the size? You mentioned red eyes. What about the size and the physical characteristics of the Chicago Mothman?
That's, and this is why I think some of the reports are suspicious, actually. They were all very similar in their description, in saying that it was about 6 feet tall, had big red glowing eyes, wings, humanoid, grayish black color. But almost in some of the reports are like, I saw it fly above me. It was about 6 feet tall. And I was like, how would you be able to measure that? It's kind of hard to tell how big something is when it's flying above you. So I almost found the consistent description to be suspicious. So,
and you're right about that. So I had house guests this weekend, right? And we were in the backyard, and I live in the desert. And one thing that we have out here is we have giant ravens. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's another species of ravens out there called giant big ass ravens, but we have that species of raven out here. And so, but when they're up flying, you don't know how big they are. When they swoop down over your backyard a few feet off the ground and you see that wingspan is, 4 feet across, you kind of jump back and go, man, those things are huge. But you can't tell how big those are when they're up in the sky. You just can't do it. So for somebody to say the size of something flying overhead, unless you know the size of a plane, okay, you can make a guess on a single engine Cessna. Yeah. But if it's something else that you've never seen before, no, I think it's nearly impossible to make a guess at the size.
Yeah, or people are saying how tall it is. They see it sitting on a rooftop. I mean, if you see a person up on a rooftop, you're not going to be able to guess how tall they are, down to the inches. Another interesting theory, too, by the way, someone pointed this out. There has been an influx of owls creeping into Chicago. And the reason why is there's been an increase in vermin, like rats. So the owls are coming into the city because there's a big food supply there. So, I mean, it's something to think about. I think a lot of people, especially if they've maybe never seen an owl in the dark and they see it sitting on something, it could look pretty weird to someone.
Okay. So are you suggesting that people are seeing giant owls and mistaking that for Mothman?
I mean, it could be a possibility in some cases. I'd like to try to put all the options on the table and think about which ones make sense and which ones don't, But I don't know. I mean, I never like to tell people what they saw because I don't know, but I like to think through it.
Okay, so and then we can kind of move on before we run out of time in this section of the show. When you re-released your 2 articles that you had written about the Mothman, what were what did you rewrite in both that needed to be updated?
I just, I reflected some of the more recent sightings. There has apparently been recent sightings around the O'Hare airport area a lot lately. I see a lot of reports coming in from there. So I updated with that, and then I wrote a short piece to go with the other articles that talked about Mothman's influence on pop culture, because Mothman's kind of a star. If you go on Instagram, you see a lot of artists who do create drawings and t-shirts and stuff like that, even costumes. So I just kind of reflected about how Mothman's kind of a pop star now.
Well, yeah, that's certainly true. When we go back, if you go back to Point Pleasant in '66, the internet today is a funny thing where we can share information. I don't need to explain what the internet is, but we can do stuff fairly quickly and instantly, and it's easy enough to do. But it wasn't that kind of party in 1966, and it seemed that you could have rumors on the street and you can play the game telephone. Yeah, okay, all right, and whisper in somebody's ear. But things were too similar and in different geographic areas in and around that area, which ended with, of course, the bridge collapse. And then apparently, well, not completely, but apparently most of the terror ended at that point.
Yeah.
But today, with the Chicago Mothman side of things, I almost see a connection with the Thunderbird. And you said owl, but could the witnesses be seeing the Thunderbird thinking it's human because it's so big, or the opposite? They could be seeing, the Chicago Mothman and then identifying it as a Thunderbird because they would both be very, very big with large wingspans.
Yeah, no, that's a very good theory. And I should point out that a lot of the reports describe this humanoid with red eyes, but not all of them. Some things have gotten lumped into these Mothman sightings, but if you look at what the witnesses are reporting, they're actually just one, for example, described seeing something that they thought looked sort of like a pterodactyl. So, I mean, that would fit very much with a Thunderbird description, They might have been seeing that and then just made the connection to a pterodactyl because it was big,
Okay. Somebody just said the photo on the bridge in Chicago has me puzzled. What is that? Can you guys post the link? Let me see this picture. What picture are they referring to?
I'm not sure. I don't remember one with a bridge at all.
Okay. Bill, post the link, or Dennis, post the link in the chat. You guys can't talk about stuff like that without posting the link. That is very uncool to do that to me live during the show. No, I don't see it here. So post the link so I can go and check it out. Have you seen photographs? I know that there's been mention of video and images. Have you seen anything?
One of the original reports from 2011, it shows someone took a picture of a statue of a Native American. It used to be on top of a tobacco shop there. In the background, you can see something that looks weird. But the explanation that I believe would probably be true for that photo is it looks like a kite, actually, a bat-shaped kite that someone is probably flying. I know that there have been a couple of photos that have been debunked because they were faked, But I'm not saying that that's what this photo is. I'm not familiar with it at all.
Now, you said earlier, and this is, we're going to kind of change gears a little bit. We're going to stay on subject, though. But you said interdimensional.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting term that I use every night here on the show. But why would you use that?
It just is an explanation that makes sense to me because we very rarely find like true evidence of these cryptids, right? Except for maybe a footprint once in a while, stuff like that. But it seems to me like that's the way that they can escape detection so well, is they can shift between our world and another one. So they don't leave evidence behind. You can't catch them in a net or something like that,
Well, physics today, that's exactly what they're trying to convince us of, right? That is now part of our reality. When before it was spirits and mediums and our dead Aunt Hilda coming back to visit us. But if these things are real, I believe that they are, there's got to be a scientific explanation behind them. Would interdimensional be a Band-Aid, like a catch-all?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, That's probably how I'm viewing it. I mean, I don't know what other explanations that there could be. I'm certainly open to other possibilities, but it's this one that kind of made sense to me, like some sort of portal, interdimensional portal that these things can move between.
Now, we're talking about Mothman, but
Yeah.
what about everything else?
Yeah, I think it could apply to a lot of cryptids, reports of ghosts, stuff like that. UFOs, maybe too.
Well, yes. Millions of people can't be crazy,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you run the paranormal festival, the paranormal conference in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've been doing that for almost 8 years.
Yes.
What have you learned from doing that? My view on this has changed greatly from what 25 30 years ago, the way I approached this subject, and where I am now. I'm 180 degrees in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Oh, I've learned a lot through the conference and heard a lot of interesting theories, and have met some really great researchers. So I'm always learning new stuff and thinking about new stuff. So it's really wonderful to be in that position, and I get to meet new people every year. And there's some people I see once a year, and that's at the paranormal conference. So yeah, I've heard a lot of things that
Yeah,
opened my mind to new ideas.
And so, what have you learned? That's what I want to know. I'll tell you what I've learned. I can go down the list like this and go deep with it, because I not only do I interview a lot of people, but I'm a sponge, and it's my job. But I find myself changing my mind, and I'm just not the same person. So we all walk away with something that we have learned, and you in your position. I'm just curious, man. What is it that you went? Okay, yeah, I just learned something.
I think one thing I've been more open-minded over the years is about Bigfoot. I think when I first had an interest in that, I thought it was just kind of funny. Like I was like, oh yeah, come on, Bigfoot. But I've seen evidence and talked to people where they've turned me into kind of a believer in that subject in particular. I've seen a lot of interesting photos, video, first-hand accounts. So I changed my mind on that, I think, for sure.
So before you were a skeptic?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah.
A skeptic of it not, Bigfoot not being real at all, or it being a species that was yet to be discovered, or something that is just interdimensional from from the constellation Arcturus, right?
I think when I first went into it, my percentage of believing in it was very small. And I think one of the reasons why is I'd seen so many cartoony depictions of Bigfoot and sometimes Bigfoot hunters, where I was like, come on, this is just like, someone, I don't know, some guy running around in a fursuit or something. But, like I have talked to a lot of compelling witnesses and seen a lot of stuff. So I've been convinced.
And so where are you today, though?
I would say I maybe went from like 10% up to 95% or something. It's a pretty big jump.
And do you think it's a species that is just avoiding humans, or do you think it's something more supernatural?
In that case, I do think it could possibly be a species that has avoided people. I am also open to like the idea of it being some sort of interdimensional thing, but I think it possibly could be an unknown species. We still do discover species of animals on a regular basis, which is really kind of amazing. You think the whole world is populated and that we've seen everything and explored every nook and cranny of the earth, but we really haven't.
But how do you explain the lack of bones or bodies? We haven't had any roadkill. Up in Wisconsin, all you guys do is drive by roadkill, right?
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. We hit a lot of deer and things. It's just, it's part of life. But no fresh Bigfoot on the side of the road. How do we explain that?
Well, the way someone explained it to me is they're like, how often do people find a skeleton of a bear? I mean, it does happen, but it's not extremely common.
Well, we hit a lot of bears.
No. Well,
we see a lot of bears come up and attack cars. We see a lot of bears come in and raid your cooler while you are gone on your campsite, and you catch them on the trail cam. Bear carcasses, but we see bear. I've seen a grizzly bear and her 3 cubs walk right in my backyard. I've seen that. So the species part, which anything is possible, like the giant panda, right? Okay, that didn't show up until 100 years ago. But I have issues with no bones. I do. I have issues with that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
that's why I think it's interdimensional. I think Bigfoot are Chewbacca's. That would explain. That would check all my boxes, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. The species part with me, I'm not as confident about, like I am something interdimensional or arriving in a vortex or through a portal.
Yeah. By the way, here in Wisconsin, there's a very large state park called the Kettle Moraine, and there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings there.
And where is that?
It's sort of in the middle of the state of Wisconsin. It takes up a couple hundred acres. So.
And Wisconsin, aside from the shoreline, right? Maybe you can count Green Bay too as well, but maybe not as much. But aside from the shoreline, Wisconsin is trees, right? It's thick, and if you want to hide out there and never, disconnect from the human race, you can do it in Wisconsin, can't you?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of farmland, but there is a lot of forest still.
Yeah, a lot of forest, a lot of hills. Yeah, no question about it. Now, if that part of it in physics is what is going on, is that the spirit world too as well? I mean, are the dots connected?
I think so, or they could be. I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of different theories about ghosts, of course, interdimensional spirits of dead people. I mean, they're both interesting theories. I would have to guess that some of them must be connected to people, because people see ghosts of people that they know, that were part of their life. So,
and is there a commonality, T, of the types of stories that have been part of the folklore and pop culture in Wisconsin?
With ghosts, I mean, they're just, a lot of typical ghost stories. Usually, people recognizing relatives sometimes, or, like Captain Frederick Pabst, who was the founder of the Pabst Brewery. He's a common ghost that's seen in Milwaukee. There's actually 3 different places that are supposed to be haunted by him. So we do have some historical figures that are ghosts. And it's a very common occurrence here. I lead a walking ghost tour for American Ghost Walks here in Milwaukee, which is a lot of fun. I get to talk about history and some ghost stories, and I am amazed at how many people come up to me after a tour because they feel comfortable talking to me about this, and they'll tell me very similar stories about seeing their deceased mother, doors slamming shut, cold spots, stuff like that. And very common stories, and lots of them.
Is your house haunted?
I don't think this one is. It is an old house, actually. It was built in the late 1800s, but I haven't experienced anything here.
You haven't? Have you? I have, and my house is on the newer side. It's old, but it's on the newer side of old. Does that even make sense? It's about 40. It was built in the 80s. Okay, so not the 1880s, the 1980s. But this house is completely friggin' haunted. I mean, there's stuff moving all the time. And like for real, I'm not making stuff up. It's like crazy town here. And I've just accepted it. But then when you have things like, and when we come back off of the break, we'll talk about Krampus, for instance, and where you have these stories that are handed down generation after generation. And I believe that all of it's based in reality. But then as children, growing up to be adults, we can manifest this stuff into our reality of if we push it hard enough, right?
Like a thought projection. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you think the ghosts in your house come from?
I don't know. We talked about it all weekend. I don't know. I don't know if they were here before the house was built. The Mojave Indians. I live in the desert. Is it that? Is it something else? My neighbors haven't told me anything too crazy. So it's not like, the Manson family lived here at one time or something. So I don't have any of that. But that doesn't change the reality of what has been going on here. It feels feminine. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I don't feel threatened. I don't wake up with bite marks.
That's good.
Yeah, none of that. But yeah, stuff is moving, and you hear things, and stuff is fell off the walls and fallen off of countertops. I've watched, and I have stuff moving in my closet every single day. Not every single day, but every other day. Yeah. So, but nothing has hit me in the head.
That's good.
But 1880s. So for you, I would think that there is something surviving in the house. But the reason why I bring that up, and like going back to Krampus and the other stories that are told around campfires around the country, and certainly through Wisconsin, all the way to the Chicago Mothman, right? That this stuff is based in reality. And I think that there are a lot of similarities between them.
Yeah, I do too.
When you see Krampus, doesn't aside from Krampus having arms, that could be Mothman.
Could be in the same family tree for sure.
Where did you first hear about Krampus?
I saw it on the internet somewhere, and it was like one of those articles that's like, hey, did you know that there used to be this crazy tradition where people would dress up like this monster and scare children into behaving in the old world, Germany, Austria, other European countries. I was like, wow, I never knew that. That's interesting. And then I started to see that there were cities all over the place that did their own Krampus celebration, where people would wear costumes, and it looked like a lot of fun. And I was like, why on earth do we not celebrate that in Milwaukee? Because, as you might know, Milwaukee has a very rich German heritage. It was the beer barons, Pabst, Blatz, Schlitz. They built Milwaukee into a city through the German brewing industry. So we had a very large German population here. So I was like, this is a natural fit. And then I was like, well, I'm going to organize it then. So I just kind of put the call out there on social media, and a bunch of local artists and performers and people interested in German culture all began to participate, and it's grown into a really huge event now. It's pretty much doubled in size almost every year that we've done it.
Yeah, right on. And now Krampus depends on, there isn't a kind, gentle image of Krampus out there. But that's a pretty intimidating, scary creature, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and kids do go to our event and they get scared. They're supposed to be scared, but our performers are all pretty good. If they see that a kid looks really scared, a lot of times they'll take off their mask and they'll be like, hey, I'm just wearing this mask. I'm not a real monster that's going to kidnap you. So, but I think it's great. These kids are getting to experience this and they're going to be able to pass this down to the next generation if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take our break here. We're at the top of the hour. And here's the thing, though, when we come back off of the break, I kind of want to stay here for a minute if we can, T, but there's another part about this that I want to talk about, which is I think people are okay with the subject today. And we see that in pop culture. We see that with television and film and books and so forth. So I want to stay on the pop culture part of this, which is what you write about, when we come back after this short break. Our guest tonight, T. Krulos, and we are talking about a lot of things tonight, but we're talking about the Great Lakes and monsters. We'll be right back.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back.
Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to Life Wave's X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health and wellness, and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Yeah, River Moon Coffee. Fade to Black blend. Hanging out with River Moon Coffee, Juanita and Jeff. They flew out from Minnesota. Flew out this weekend, and they brought a bunch of coffee with them, and we handed it out to our dinner guests and things. And it's just the absolute best. I popped up the link in the chat. You guys know where to go. You can go to the Amazon store and everything else. And the promo code is F2B blend. That's all you got to do. 15% off of your order today. There you go. Our guest tonight, Tia Krulos. I said Tia. I said Tia. Why? It's such a tempting thing to say, but T. Krulos is with us. And we're talking about the paranormal and supernatural throughout the Great Lakes region there. But I think that there is something bigger going on. With all of the ghost hunting shows and the Bigfoot shows, advertisers, that stuff is supported by, the community and what people want to see. This is something that the entire world is interested in, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even there's worldwide interest in stuff that happens here in Wisconsin. There's been famous cases, so we've got a reputation. Beast of Bray Road, Bigfoot sightings, UFOs, serial killers, all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys had serial killers there too, as well. I forgot about that. Yeah. Besides the Beast of Bray Road, what's another big case out of Wisconsin?
It's been a lot of UFO cases for sure over the years. These are more historic, but lake monsters. We've had a lot of lake monster reports.
What's one of the bigger UFO cases out of Wisconsin?
Well, they used to do a festival every year in a town called Dundee. It's on Long Lake, and there's been a lot of UFO sightings above Long Lake area. There's a very interesting historical case that happened here in Milwaukee. It was in 1897, and it was they called it a mystery airship, but it was this is 1897. There's not a lot of stuff flying around in the sky, but people saw this giant glowing disc that cruised right over the downtown area. So that's one of the stories I talk about on the tour that I do. Also, and I think that they're not recognized as much as they should be, but Coral Lorenzen and her husband Jim, they founded the APRO, which was sort of a forerunner of MUFON.
APRO, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they founded that group when they were living in Sturgeon Bay, which is, it's on Door County, which is somewhat close to Green Bay. It's on the Green Bay. And they were inspired to start the group because there in Sturgeon Bay, this was in the 50s, there was a large group of people who saw a UFO that came cruising right over the city. And that really inspired them to start the group. And they did a newsletter, which was, before the internet days. If you wanted to talk about a subject like that, you didn't have a lot of venues to do that in. So a newsletter was one of the ways that you could communicate with other people about this. So they're really important in UFO history, I think. And I know a lot of people who are into UFO research and stuff have probably heard of them, but they're not. I don't think that they're recognized as much as they should be.
Well, in the UFO community, APRO was very, very important, and I think that most of the people that get into heavy research in our community and start to jump into the history, we certainly recognize APRO and NICAP, those precursors to not only MUFON, but they were happening at the same time as Project Blue Book. And there was a big, big, big interest across this country from citizens to do their own research because the government and Blue Book wasn't answering those questions for them. And that's what APRO did. APRO came along and tried to fill those gaps because people wanted answers.
Yeah, it's really great. I was able to find a collection that collects their early newsletters from the 50s, and it was definitely a labor of love. You could tell it was created on a typewriter. That's how you had to do it then. They type wrote the whole newsletter, and they did their own illustrations and graphs and stuff like that, and it's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, and let's stay on that for a second, because when you go back historically into like APRO and NICAP, and you see not only the sightings but the way that they were reported, you bring up a great point. 1897, what was in the sky in 1897, right? Well,
not even an airplane.
The answer is nothing, right?
Yeah.
Except for Thunderbirds. But when you go into the 50s and you look at those original APRO and NICAP sighting reports, we're talking about, in some cases, thousands of miles an hour, taking right turns, flying at these fantastical speeds. Without wings. And, saucers were some descriptions, but we had others too as well. But they're also very similar to what we are seeing today. Mm-hmm. But we got to remember that we're talking about 70 years ago. Somebody was seeing something in the sky, weren't they? And you can't just say that it was us, because we simply didn't have that technology back then.
No. Yeah. And some of their terminology has changed, but you're right in that very consistent with UFOs that people report seeing today. And APRO did a great job in this newsletter, because Coral Lorenzen, who did a lot of the writing on it, was also a journalist. So she knew how to ask the right questions and provide information in a clear and concise way. So, it's very interesting to read those old reports and how consistent they are.
And the reports had to come in. Some would come in via telephone. Mm-hmm. The other ones would come in an envelope. There's a thing called the mail. Well, people don't remember this, but we used to have stuff delivered, and that's how APRO and NICAP too as well. Even like the different reporting services of sightings. A lot of the stuff, people had to take the time to write it down. And if they wrote it down and bought a stamp and put it in the mail, they did it for a reason. I don't think that they were hoaxing. This is something that they actually saw, and they wanted to report it and document it.
Yeah. And once their reputation, kind of got out, then people would drive and visit them in person to tell them stories. And so that takes some dedication too. If you're going to drive halfway across the state just so you can talk to someone, because that experience you had was so impactful on you that you're looking for someone to help you with the answers,
What do you think is happening today with this?
With UFOs?
Yeah, because now it's everywhere. It is truly everywhere. It's not just the UFO community and us talking about it. It seems to be from every direction. Academia to the Pentagon to the White House and throughout the states and mass media.
I think people, all sorts of people, really want answers to this. They've seen some of the footage and the reports, and a lot of people don't think it's a joke anymore. They want to know what's going on. including people in government and academia. So, yeah, I think there's a real hunger for information and answers. And I hope that we get some.
Do you think the government is sitting on secrets?
Yeah, they always are. That's their job in a way sometimes.
But is it going to be easy for them to start to come clean, though?
I don't know. One person can change a lot. If you get the right person, that will start to come out. But
Is the world ready for it?
I don't think so.
You don't think the world can handle the truth?
I mean, they'll have to, but I don't know if they're ready.
Well, yeah, and why is that? I mean, you said I don't think so pretty quickly. Why is that?
I mean, I get a little skeptical about the human race sometimes. I don't know. I don't know what. There's a lot of division amongst people, a lot of arguing about kind of worthless, mundane stuff. So when you see how people react to some stuff, you kind of have to wonder what's going to happen when this slaps them across the face that they're here. I don't know. I sometimes just don't have faith in human nature in general. I think, there's a lot. I think some people will be able to handle it and are expecting it, but a lot of people are going to freak out.
Well, okay, but just like physics or science or the supernatural, the paranormal, or whatever it may be, lost history, we're getting smarter and smarter every day, and we are exposed to so much. And so when it comes to the possibility of lots of life in our Milky Way, I'm not even talking about the universe. I'm just talking about us and our celestial neighborhood here, our little slice of the pie, that we now understand, and I'm talking about globally, that there must be lots of life out there. I don't think it's going to surprise too many people.
It's going to surprise some people for sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends who you're talking about specifically. So,
if there's an issue, it may be from a religious, side of it. Okay, there could be some concerns there.
Yeah.
But even that, the different religious leaders will have their own spin on it.
That's true.
And be able to try to control the narrative like they've done for millennia, right? But I think that would be a sort of a major concern. But if you're thinking rationally and you're not too radically fundamentalized, that there has to be life out there, and we can't be the only one.
It's so weird to think that a generation from now, it just might be the normal thing, that we're living side by side by other civilizations, and they're going to look back at this time frame and be like, remember when this wasn't a thing? It's weird to think about. I mean, I hope I get to see it in my lifetime. Something.
Well, and that's a really good point, because if we look at and there's I'm going to segue this back into ghost here in just a second. Everything is connected. But if you look at the kids today,
mm-hmm.
10, 11, 12, 15, 18, 20, 21 years old, they have been raised on the internet and exposed to media of all sorts, whether it's music videos, movies, streaming services, and their relationships and their friends. They have been exposed to ET and the ET presence differently than you and I and our generations have. I don't think there's any doubt that we are not alone with them. I think it's just a way of life now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like you say, there's so much media that they absorb, and it's kind of the norm in a lot of that.
The when you're ghost hunting, okay, so here we have when we're looking for UFOs, back when APRO and NICAP in the early days of MUFON or whatever, you had a camera with film in it if you were lucky,
Yeah,
and you had binoculars, and if you were lucky, maybe you had a telescope, but that was it.
yeah,
Today, we've got electronic collection devices everywhere for the common man. We have night vision. We have the ability to shoot video and shoot images. Everybody carries this on them, and we have the software to do those conversions. Right there, right on our. There's an app for everything,
yeah,
and we. It's the same thing with the supernatural, where you are able to go on a ghost hunt. You're no longer swinging a pendulum. You know what I mean? Or having a seance, burning some herbs and looking for ectoplasm, right? Or a shaking table. It's not that kind of party anymore. Now you've got all of these electronic sensor devices to go on a ghost hunt with. Is that helping prove the phenomena and that it may be something electrical? That there's something else within the laws of physics that is going on?
yeah. I mean, the technology has evolved, and I think it's great because it gives you more tools. It gives you a bigger toolkit. So, like you say, my phone, it's got a camera, and you can shoot video on it. It's got a measuring things you can measure. So, I think those things are helpful to have. But I mean, I think the greatest tool you have is your own senses, your own brain and your eyes and your ears. And that's the best way to perceive things.
When you're out with, I think you said the Milwaukee paranormal. What were they called?
Paranormal investigators of Milwaukee. Yeah.
Right. So when you're out, so that would be the paranormal and PI, the PIMS.
Yeah.
When you're out with the PIMS,
Yeah.
and you got a K meter that goes off, right? You've got some kind of night vision image going across. What do you think is triggering these?
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. Sometimes there is a rather mundane explanation for it. You're close to an electrical box or something like that. But other times it is unknown. I'm not saying necessarily paranormal, but unknown. They have gotten some interesting evidence. The most interesting thing that they've gotten, I think, are EVPs.
That's where I was going. I like the way you did that. That's exactly where I'm going next, because it may be, and I'm not sure how it's happening. You're going to answer the question, not me.
Yeah.
But if it's triggering an electronic device that's recording, that's one thing. But to have that actually be a voice with a message is something else altogether. How is that happening if you don't have a throat?
I don't know. I will say that they have recorded some EVPs that have made my hair stand on end because they're clear and they're very eerie. So I don't know how a ghost would be able to manifest that, but it's not static. It's a clear message. So yeah, that's one of the things that's probably creeped me out the most in looking at ghost evidence is hearing some of these EVPs, especially ones that are specific. There was they were doing an investigation on a haunted farm here in Wisconsin, maybe it was in Illinois, and one of them was pulling down. They had an attic with a stairwell that you pull down. It unfolds and then you can go up into the attic. So they're starting to pull this down, and they caught an EVP right when that was happening, and it's a voice saying, "I don't want them to go up the ladder like that." And I was like, wow, that's referencing this ladder-like stairwell that they're pulling down.
oddly specific, right?
Yeah. So they have a couple like that where it's pretty
Have you,
specific.
have you done an EVP session yourself?
You mean just like recording
Yeah.
in my house or something?
No, with them. Have you been present when an EVP at an EVP session?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And have you caught the EVP?
I don't think that I caught any of the EVPs on my recorder. What they do is all the group members have a recorder on them, right? And they do a timestamp, so you're all like, you can reference each other's audio recordings. And I've never caught one on mine, but I have been with them when they've caught it.
Yeah, and so, well, that's my question. My question is, have you been present when one of these sessions happen?
Yeah.
Because you see the method.
Yeah.
You're listening to the background. You know who was there. You know the question that was asked. And then you turn around and you hear something on a recorder, and you were there.
Yeah.
You know that you didn't hear anything, but there it is clearly on the recorder.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good paradigm shift of your reality, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It makes you feel like you're not alone. Like maybe there's something talking in my room right now, and I just don't know about it.
Well, I just think it's electronic. I think it's electronic. There's something going on in the ether around you, and they are able to manifest the electromagnetic principles that are happening, and through the digital circuits that are there to get that to react in a way and get it recorded. I think that is what's going on. From its physics standpoint. Is it a spirit? Sure. Yeah, it's that. But that's why EVPs happen, and that's how they are created. That's what I think. I think it's some kind of electromagnetic interference that's going on in the room, and it's also throughout the universe. It's not just in, Milwaukee or my house. It's everywhere around us.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why do you think? Okay, what's your definition of conspiracy? I'm curious.
Well, there's probably more than one. Conspiracies do happen. They have happened historically. We know about it because we later find out.
But what's your definition of a conspiracy?
Something done secretly to seize power or influence a world happening by clandestine methods, I would say.
Okay, so that's a pop culture definition of conspiracy. If you look up, and which is I agree with, but if you look up conspiracy in Webster's dictionary, it's going to say more than one person, meaning two, getting together to commit a crime.
Sure.
Hence the charge of conspiracy in court, right? So you've got two people conspiring for the bank robbery or whatever. That's the definition of conspiracy. Pop culture has gotten away from that and turned it into what you just said right there, which I agree with too as well. Oh, that's chemtrails, that's a conspiracy, right? UFOs is a conspiracy by our government. But it's not the true definition of it. But if we go to your definition of conspiracy, why has society jumped so quickly to believe everything and to label everything as a conspiracy?
I would say a major reason is that our government has done a lot of shady stuff over the years. And so it's built a culture of distrust in them and what they have to say. So when people theorize about why things happen, people tend to believe it because they think it sounds right and it fits into history. So, there's different reasons why people believe different things. Sometimes it's a personal thing or an experience that they've had. Other people have fallen down a YouTube rabbit hole and had these ideas kind of they've immersed into these ideas. So, I mean, conspiracy is kind of a broad topic. It can apply to many different things. Some more believable than others, and some, like I said, that are, actual conspiracies that we know took place.
Well, yeah, for sure. But there must be some underlying reason for this, and it doesn't matter culturally or geographically. It's not a specific region. This is all over the world now, and too quickly, if it doesn't fit your paradigm, somebody yells, it's got to be a conspiracy, and then we have an agreement with that. And it is an absolute phenomenon where over the last, I'm going to say 5 years, maybe 6.
Yeah.
6 years, where this is it. Everything is a conspiracy now. And it doesn't matter what media outlet you go to. It's no longer reporting the news. It's reporting the opinion of a conspiracy. And society is okay with that. And I'm just wondering why.
I think it's a lot, and again, it depends what you're talking about, but a lot of it is part of a bigger cultural divide. This is a very divided country when it comes to politics, lifestyle, and other choices. So conspiracies, a lot of times, historically in the past, have been used to demonize your enemy, right? So if you say that, if you don't like Democrats, let's say, and you say that they eat babies and worship Satan and, all this stuff, that kind of is a confirmation bias for yourself. So it makes sense to you. You're like, yeah, that does sound right. They would do that, and vice versa too, there's conspiracies about all sorts of groups of people. And a lot of that is just part of the big divide that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's you're certainly correct in putting it that way, but it's also more fundamental. It could be. I'll make something up just off the top of my head. I can start a conspiracy right now on this show about traffic lights.
Yeah.
Right? I can do it right now, and suddenly that'll take off. I could make up a conspiracy right now on this show about chocolate chip cookies. I could make it, and it would run and have legs and go viral. That's what I'm referring to. It's that it's the catch-all. It's the drought. It's the vaccines. It's the common cold. It's chemtrails. It's flight patterns of commercial airlines in between small regional airports. I don't care what it is, but everything is a conspiracy today. That's what I'm referring to. And our society is just too ready and willing to put that label on it, like everything is shifted in the reality.
Well, and it's so easy to spread those ideas now, too. Like you said, you could easily start a conspiracy with your show. I mean, it's a great thing. It's a great thing that people now have the freedom to create a podcast or, a web show or something like that. But it also means that people can very easily spread misinformation. A lot of times people like to weaponize conspiracies. So you might find that this idea floating around was actually planted there by a Russian troll farm or something because they want to sow discord. So there's different motivations as to why people share some of this stuff. And, I think it's important for people to analyze the media that they're looking at and try to figure out where it's coming from and what the motivations for spreading it might be.
Well, you brought up, I love that. If you're a dog, right? People don't know you're a dog.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that is exactly the problem with social media.
Yeah.
And I put out the warnings probably 7, 8, maybe even 9 years ago. And I had said, you don't know who you're fighting with right now on social media. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and that person that that thing, that image that you're arguing with may not need to eat or sleep. Right? That this is something that's automatic, that is inside of your head. You need to sleep, but this thing is right. You need to eat. You need to go to work. You need to take your kids to school, but not some of these things that you're fighting with. And they are able to sow the seeds and plant the ideas out there. And it's not even a human being doing it. And that's crazy. I think that the man, whoever that may be, has figured that out, right, T?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I miss a little bit. There's a lot of things I love about the internet. It has given me some wonderful connections. I've met people online. I've been able to share my ideas online, and that's fantastic. But I do kind of miss, you know, back in the old days, if you thought someone was an idiot, then you had to go find them in person and say, hey, I think you're an idiot, you know? And then you'd have a chance to maybe punch the person or explain to the person who you are. But you were having a conversation with a real person, you know? And now, like you say, you're arguing with someone on the internet and you're not sure who this person is. It also, a lot of times, I think people just don't understand each other because they're not hearing your voice. They're not seeing your facial expression. And so you get into these arguments that are over nothing.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I think that some of it. Now, I think a lot of it is machines. Okay, I don't even think that so I think there's that technology is there, for sure. And I'm talking about not a few. And there's a possibility of it, literally tens of millions of AI machine learning sock puppet accounts on Twitter right now.
It's bad now, and it's only going to get
worse.
It's improving. The AI is getting better. You can do deep fakes where, you know, if you want to sabotage a political opponent, let's say, you can make a really convincing deep fake of them saying, you know, hey, I'm about to push the nuke button or something.
You know it's coming. You know it's coming. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
But the other part about this is I engage in social media pretty much like 100% of the time. If I do, it's with somebody that I know, somebody that I've met in person. Right? Anything else? I don't know you. Yeah. And not only do I not know you, I don't know if you're male, female, old, young, if you're employed, have a job, if you're educated. I don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about your reality. And I certainly can't hear your voice. So I just can't do that. Like, I can't invest the time or the energy into it. But everybody else does, and they take the bait, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. Hey, I've been guilty. It's happened to me a couple times where I got sucked into something, and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I arguing with someone I don't know on the internet? What a waste of my time, you know? So.
Yeah. And it's our culture, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Why do you? What's your opinion? Why do you think this happened so quickly? Because in 1995, we had AOL. We had no idea the implications of social media. We didn't have a clue. We didn't understand what the internet was about to do to us. We still had stores that were opened, right? We had no idea what was about to happen. And then here in 25 short years, our culture has changed. Our DNA has fundamentally been altered. Why do you think we allowed it to happen so quickly?
It's so addictive. I mean, I was a late bloomer to the internet. I did not get my first email until 2001.
Wow.
I finally set up an email. And the reason why, I imagined all of this at that point. I was like, I don't want to be stuck in front of a computer. Like, I want to be out there living my life, you know? So finally I got an email, and this is crazy for me to think. I got that email in 2001, and I went once, maybe every 2 weeks. I walked to the library where you could have 30 minutes of computer time. I checked my email once every 2 weeks. And then, if I wanted to look something up, I would look stuff up on the internet, and I'd spend a half hour every 2 weeks on the internet. Now I've got this dumb phone with me, and I'm checking my social media, my email all the time. And people like to have attention. It's a really human need. So that's why you see so many people are addicted to taking selfies and checking in everywhere they go and trying to post stuff so they get more and more likes. And it becomes very consuming, where your brain is always connected to the internet. And like I say, there's a lot of things I love about the internet, but I think it's also very dangerous to do that, because you create a sense of reality that isn't really reality.
You know what I find myself doing? I do it a lot, actually. I'll be out with friends. I'll be out with dinner. I'll be at a conference. It doesn't matter. I'm around, I'm constantly around people, right? And I have people around me. I'll say these words: put your phones down. Stop looking at your phones. Stop. Stop.
Yeah.
You want to hang out at this table? You want to talk? You want to be amongst friends? Put your phone down.
Well, I think that's a great thing. It's a great thing, and I think of that sometimes, and I need to do a better job of it.
Yeah, me too.
There's been times I've been on the phone. I'm like, why are you sitting here playing on your phone when you could be having a more meaningful conversation with someone in the same room as you sometimes?
Well, you know what I think is rude? Okay, there should be, we should have some basic ethics here. But let me tell you what is rude. You're sitting, you're standing, sitting, you could be having lunch, or you could be just standing having a conversation with somebody, right? Just talking. And their phone dings, and they look at it and interrupt. So apparently the phone is more important than you.
Yeah.
And that is friggin' rude.
Yeah, it is.
Show people, man, put your phone on vibrate, put it in your pocket, have the conversation. If it's dinged and it vibrated in your pocket, check it when you're walking away. But when you're standing in front of somebody, or you're sitting at a table and you're having a conversation and eating or drinking or whatever, and your phone dings and you pick it up and look at it, you just told that person sitting in front of you, it could be your mom, that they are not that important.
Yeah.
The ding is more important. And that, man, I'm telling you, and I'm gonna fight this till my last breath. We need to have an ethic standard with this.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. I remember this was quite a while ago. This was when I was single. I went on a first date, and this person was on their phone the whole time. Like, oh, sorry, I just want to, I was like, this is the worst date I've gone on. It's people can't separate themselves from that.
No, and I'm going to talk about time travel, but and we're almost out of time, so I don't want to time travel out of time. I'm going to circle back to that, but I think, hang on. Sometimes I need a sip of River Moon coffee.
Right, there you go.
I don't think there is anything wrong with that first date and you looking at her right in the eye and going, put your phone away. Right there. Just call it out.
Yeah.
Call it out. Call it out. Put your phone away. That's it. That's it. I think that is just rude beyond word. That's like, you know what the example is? You're sitting having that first date, and then somebody at the next table starts talking to her. She gets up, doesn't say anything to you, just gets up and goes over and starts having a guy and leaves you alone at the table. It's the exact same thing. It's friggin' rude.
Yeah.
So that when you're around somebody, put your phone down. You got all that alone time. When you go to the bathroom, take your phone. Take your phone to the bathroom if it's that important.
Yeah.
But that's the world that we live in today. And I think we need some ethics police to come in and start telling everybody what side of the table your fork and your spoon go on and how you're supposed to do this thing. You know, and that's where I'm at. It's frustrating to me.
It is. It's yeah, like I say, it's like an addiction, you know, for a lot of people.
Is time travel real?
I don't know. I think it's possible. I heard an interesting theory that UFOs might just be us from the future.
Sure.
Taking a, history tour. Maybe kind of like my walking tour of downtown Milwaukee, except it's a flight back into time.
Maybe those bots on Twitter are time travel.
Right. Yeah, they figured out how to go back in time and cash in, on people.
What about the Mandela effect? Is that time travelers, going back and messing with our timeline, and they can't mess with our memory.
Yeah.
They mess with the facts, right? Which in turn mess with our memory. Is that an example of time travelers?
It could be. I think Mandela effect also could be, like we were talking, interdimensional thing, multiverse type of something has slipped through the cracks where there's, kind of like breadcrumbs left over from some sort of collision between these dimensions or multiverses. I don't know. I'm very interested in it. I like to read about it and hear theories about it. Time travel, I'm not finding. I've been researching it a little bit. I haven't gotten too deep into it. I'm not finding anything that's really compelled me yet.
Really?
No.
So have you checked out John Teeter?
Yeah, I've read a little bit about that case.
Okay. And
I mean, I think it's interesting, but from what I remember, it seemed like the trail led to a potential hoax.
No.
Is what I was led to believe.
That's what a single person or two out there, anybody can deduce anything and get it to fit into your lane. Okay, all right, doesn't matter, so that's fine. Here's the deal with John Teeter. Nobody's been busted. Nobody. And with all of the evidence that was presented online with John Teeter, now I'm saying he's not a proven factual time traveler, okay? But what I am saying is you've got photographs of his time machine and his car, and you have all of the typesetting and the manuals and the instructions and all the information about the computer side of things and everything else that was presented online for quite a while, and it's all there. None of that stuff has been brought forward. An ex-girlfriend hasn't shown up saying that was my boyfriend back then. He was a doofus, and he did this, and here's the evidence, and here's the model that he built. Here's the stickers that he had made to put on the time machine. No. None of that has happened. When he said, "I'm gone," he was gone. That's the part of it that if I'm going to say black and white and pragmatic, about this, you can't keep things secret forever. Somebody's going to leak it.
That's true. That's true.
Somebody's going to blow it for you. And here we are in 2023. That was 1990, right? Right? No, 2000. That was 2000.
Early,
So,
yeah.
33 years ago, man.
Yeah, I know. I haven't read. He wrote a book, I believe, right?
No,
Did
not.
He did not.
No.
Someone else wrote. I thought he did. I knew that there was a book about him. Then maybe I haven't read it. So.
And it's pot. I mean, but did John Teeter write a book? No.
Okay.
John Teeter was a guy that showed up on a couple of forums, one for Coast to Coast AM and another one called the Time Travel Institute. Okay, two different forums in 1999 and 2000, and said, "Hey, I'm from 2036. Ask me anything." All right, and that's pretty much in a nutshell what went down. And he hung out. He posted photographs. He did stuff. He hung out for a few months, and then he said, I got to go back. It was great hanging out with you, but bye. And that was the end of it.
Oh, I think what I'm thinking of then, someone must have taken like his posts and photos and collected that into some sort of.
Yeah, that's been done a few times.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't read that. I would like to.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Now, okay, so Einstein painted a pretty good theory for traveling to the future. And that's easy. It is. It's easy. It's just a physical phenomenon. You and I we're time traveling right now, actually, but we could travel to the far future pretty easily. But it's going backwards that is difficult. What do you make of that? If we don't see time travelers today from the future, I'm not talking about UFOs. Does that mean that time travel may be impossible?
No, I don't think it's impossible. I don't think there's much that's impossible. I believe that technology could be developed. And there's what was his name? There's a professor, Dr. Ronald Mallet, I think his name is.
Ronald Mallet, yeah. Smart guy.
Yeah, he's that's been his life work is trying to figure that out, and he seems pretty convinced that it can be done. So,
Yeah, he okay. Well, he tried to do it with lasers, and he got some funding. I think he was at University of Connecticut.
Yeah, that sounds right. One of those New England states. Yeah.
And I had him on this show once or twice. Sure. And I like his story. He missed his dad, and he wanted to go back and reestablish his relationship with his dad, and maybe save his life. I think his dad had a heart attack or something at a young age, and maybe he wanted to go back and say, "Dad, you got to eat less potato chips." You know what I mean? And straighten him out. But and I like the story behind that. The problem is, are you going to physically go back in time, or are you going to mentally go back in time? How do you establish this? What do you think it's possible to physically take you and go back in time where the community would physically see you and you would be a part of that timeline?
I mean, I don't understand how that could happen, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. I just, I'm not scientifically trained, so I'm not sure how it could happen.
Richard Dolan said to me once, and he's right about this because I thought about the exact same thing. He said, "Look, man, if you go back in time, then that means that everything goes back in time. The entire universe, everything. It just can't be you. You would be reversing time for everybody else." And I kind of understand that part of the argument. So the part that is so romantic to us is the science fiction side of it. We still continue moving forward, right? Life isn't changing here. It's just us that gets to go back and visit the one that got away. And that's the part that we want to believe in, right? The romantic science fiction version of time travel.
Right, because everyone, or most people, have something where they're like, I wish I could go back in time and change that moment a little bit, where I made a bad decision or something bad happened. Yeah.
Would you do it?
I don't think so. I think that having those painful life lessons develop who you are as a person. And you got to accept it and keep moving forward. And, it's just...
You don't wish you had better grades in math class?
I do wish I had better grades in math class. That was my worst subject, for sure.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, life is a journey, and everything that has happened is made you. It's what has brought you here right now. And if you went back and altered anything, you and I aren't having this conversation.
Right, exactly.
Your kids aren't born.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. Forget that. Right? Yeah. Because that one little butterfly effect is going to throw you completely somewhere else. And you're not going to be who you are today to wish that you could go back and change something from the past.
Exactly. And, I was bad at math. I'm still bad at math. But that made me realize I love working with words. So I focused on that. So if I went back in time and, improved myself to be a mathematician and I became, an accountant instead, my life, I might have more money or something, but I don't know that I would be happier,
Now, before we go, staying on time travel, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So physics today, especially in the quantum version of this, will suggest the multi-world theory and multiple dimensions, and that there are infinite versions of T. Krulos. Infinite. Yeah. Everything that is possible is happening right now with you, just to the left and to the right, right? Would you go and visit one of those timelines? Would you go out of this one to another one?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I would be curious, for sure, but I would be kind of afraid. I maybe don't want to see myself in other timelines. I might be afraid of what I would see. Maybe I'm a bad person in some of these other timelines, or an unhappy one, So
a Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right. You never, yeah.
You don't. Yeah, and I always look at it this way. No, they're in the world of probabilities. That one's not probable, right? I could never be that person. But this is what physics is saying is part of our reality, that the math is saying this is the way that it is. Well, if that's the case and the algorithms are showing this, then why can't a physicist believe in consciousness existing outside of the body? Why can't a physicist believe in ghosts? Why can't it's weird. They want to have it both ways. They don't want to believe in the supernatural, but they'll tell you that there are infinite versions of you in the multiverse.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm sure that there probably are some physicists who are open to concepts like that, but
I haven't met him yet. No,
yeah,
I haven't met
that's
him.
True. I don't think I have either, to be honest. Yeah. So, yeah, it is faith in different things is, it's strange that people will believe one thing but not another.
Where can everybody go and read your latest stuff?
Best place to go is my website. It's Krulos, TEAKRULOS.com. That's got links to the books I've written. I do a column on my website a couple times a month called T's Weird Week, and I just write about whatever subject I'm interested in writing about that particular week. And I also have a link there where people can see upcoming appearances that I'm doing and stuff like that.
Thank you so much, T. What a great conversation.
Great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you, and I look forward to having you on the show again very soon. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Great conversation tonight. T. Krulos, and his links are below. We have everything over on social media and, of course, up on our website. And now, tomorrow night, I have Gene Broida on the show. And tomorrow night, we're doing taboo topics. Taboo topics all night long. Tomorrow night on Fade to Black. What a perfect show tonight. And now, man, I'm telling you, the Chicago Mothman. Who knew? Who knew? Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR with the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your Jimmy Church. Till tomorrow night with Gene, I want everybody to be safe. Go backly tappy.
Yeah.